Thanks, Carolyn. Michael Barbaro is with me now. Michael, when you were talking earlier, we were talking about sort of this speech reflecting this change in strategy from a fire Barack Obama to a hire me strategy. How did that happen over the last 6 months, say?
It certainly was something that evolved. You know, that notion, hire versus fire, it's the central tactical question of this campaign.
Absolutely.
And a decision was made many months back that the Romney campaign was going to take the fire approach, fire Barack Obama. We're going to make a case that this is an irredeemable presidency.
He's failed on the economy.
Failed on the economy. Doesn't understand the way the economy works. Doesn't understand
business,
us.
Doesn't understand America.
That's right. That's right. And that was a potentially wise and successful strategy, but something interesting and important happened. Number one, Barack Obama trained a ton of money in the other direction, at firing, in a sense, Mitt Romney.
And making him look like someone who likes to fire other people.
Making him look like a cold-blooded capitalist,
right.
Unfeeling, all the rest. We sort of know that caricature. And to a degree that alarmed the Romney people, it was working. And they had their own financial problem. They were running up against a wall that primary candidates do. They can't reach into the big pot of gold until
Tuesday night,
until this convention started. They had a real problem. They had to switch gears. They couldn't just try to fire Barack Obama. And you saw, interestingly, that lots of people around Mitt Romney, including, as I think we'll talk about in a minute, his not yet running mate, Paul Ryan, they were all beginning to urge him to run a hire, not just a fire kind of campaign, to make a case for how he would govern if he got elected.
And you started to hear it from actually a lot of Republicans who would speak in the media and say, Mitt Romney's got to be offering something, a reason to buy into him, because
that's right.
I think people, you know, the idea being that people make a decision just to fire their congressman or their senator, but there's something kind of more personal about the pick of a presidential candidate, and it's a kind of more gut thing. And that favorability rating has a different kind of power, personal favorability rating, for a presidential candidate than it maybe does for your,
That's absolutely right. And what we thought would happen, what they thought would happen, was that Barack Obama's numbers would plunge, and his might stay just the same, which was fine. But what happened was Barack Obama's were staying the same, and Mitt Romney's were beginning to fall. And that became the push required to change this sort of strategy.
And when he did start talking to Paul Ryan about becoming his running mate, Paul Ryan was very much in favor of we have to go out there with a plan, right?
Okay, this may go down in history, Paul Ryan, as one of the most, kind of disciplined potential running mates who kind of turned that vetting process back on the nominee himself and said, this is kind of what I'd like from you. One of the things he was pushing for was what he called an affirmative vision. You need to tell people how you're going to govern. And we began to see it almost immediately in the last few months, not just from Paul Ryan, of course.
We see more detailed plans. There's, even in this speech tonight, the 5-point plan for here's how I'm going to create
Suddenly,
jobs.
at the end of Mitt Romney's speeches, he began attack on a 5-point plan that was not there when we began covering him many months ago.
Right, and so it has forced certain specifics, and actually potentially takes away a certain argument from the Obama campaign, which is, that he wasn't offering,
and that he stands for nothing, that he just wants to say what's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, and so he is starting to outline a plan. I mean, it's not deeply detailed, but it's a plan.
And do we think he's going to be forced in the direction of both offering more plans and sort of embracing some of the Ryan plans yet more as time goes on?
I think we saw in the last 10 days or so that he offered a pretty extraordinarily detailed plan for energy harvesting, for taking federal lands, letting states more or less lease them, borrow them, and do the kind of very intrusive drilling and exploration that raises lots of controversial questions. I think you're going to see more of that along the lines of healthcare, education, maybe each week probably having a theme, and then that moving along towards the general election.